Go ahead, we'll start.
Okay. Yeah, I have just within the hour assumed the office of district court judge. And so I've handed in paperwork to let them know that I am resigning here effective immediately. However, Judge Graves is going to, he's already told me, he hasn't done it yet, but he told me he's going to issue an order making me special probate judge so that I can handle what has to be handled in the meantime until we get a replacement in. So I'll be running back and forth a little bit. If y'all didn't know, Michelle, chief clerk, had surgery and she's going to be out for 3 weeks. So without a judge or a chief clerk, that was, probate court wasn't going to be able to do much of anything. And so Judge Graves, you know, obviously agreed to appoint me special so that I can continue to do that until we get a replacement. So,
Good, thank you.
if y'all need anything, let me know. Cut Brad's budget in half.
It's your birthday.
It's your birthday.
Thank you.
See you, Judge. Sheriff?
I do not have anything.
Anything, Dave? Okay, so it just brings us to Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few quick things tonight. The Elgin building we talked about last meeting. Talking with Ms. Snoddy, we went through and looked at it just as a refresher of what we talked about last time. You know, the building is what it is. It has a septic system. It's a block building. It's not a Taj Mahal by any means, but it does have facilities. Has some dry storage, and it ties in really good to our property down there. I offered her $75,000. We have settled back on $90,000. That's what it would take to buy it. So that's kind of where it is. And she came back higher, and we came back. So basically, it's up to y'all. If y'all want to proceed, I still think it's worth the money just for what we're getting for that facility and what it's going to mean for the long-term use with solid waste and us down there. But it's up to y'all. If y'all want me to proceed, I'd be glad to. I had to work with Chris. Oh, and I did. That was $90,000, and we would pay closing costs, which I didn't even know what that would look like on a sale like this. But that was just negotiating on the phone, just trying to get something to take to y'all. So.
You mean with all fees? You tell you would pay all fees, okay?
Everybody good with that?
Yeah, aye.
You are? Joe, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do it.
All right, thanks, guys. I'll get with Chris, and we'll proceed on that. Next thing I got, a little bit of let me give you a little refresher quick. It's been a little while since we've done this. If you recall, when we pave a dirt road, we have a long-standing agreement with utility departments, specifically water departments usually. If they've got a water line in the road, it's a dirt road, and we go to pave it, they do not want to pave over top of their water lines, so we ask them to move it. It's in our right-of-way. When they move it, we agree to pay half of that project up to $10,000 on our part. Okay, and if you recall, in 2022, we upped that amount to $10,000. So we will basically give them $10,000 per project to do this. County Road 641 in Center Hill Community, we just paved that road last year, and Green Hill Water did that project, and they submitted an invoice to us for that. Their project total was $45,000 and some odd dollars, and so we would pay them $10,000 for that. So that for the first one, County Road 641, and I've got paperwork for you, Brenda. We would need to do that for the next agenda. County Road 378 is also the long road. We have to, me and Danny, we've got blood, sweat, and tears in that one. And great road, turned out good, and we dealt with the water authority the whole time. And that was a $82,000 water project, and so I would also recommend that we pay the $10,000 on that project. Now, to my surprise, they also submitted another invoice for County Road 130, which ties to County Road 378, which has always been a paved road. And now they did some water line improvements on that road, but it didn't have anything to do with what we did to the road. So my recommendation would be do not pay the $10,000 on that one. I don't feel like we owe them anything for that work they did on County Road 130. So they submitted an invoice, but before I told them no, I was going to tell you guys what I was going to tell them, and I'll do whatever you guys want. But I don't see that we're responsible for anything on that. The County Road 130 portion was right at $35,000 total. So But like I said, I have no idea how that tied into our stuff.
They had to go over there to, and bore under, didn't they, I think? But we also got the money, was that ARPA money? We kinda covered that.
Yeah. If you take.
They had money, it wasn't out of this particular 6,000, or 10,000, but we did give them some money to do
Yeah,
that.
and it was substantial. I don't remember the
Quarter of a million.
Yeah, that's what it was.
If you add these three projects up, you're about 160,000. So,
I know I went up there personally and told them, and they agreed with me that they would use some of that to go under 130, so we kind of covered that.
well, I'll proceed like that if y'all want me to do something different, or Danny, I know you know those guys better than I do, so if you want me to have a conversation, Don Price, their engineer, is the one that submitted everything to me, so I'll probably start back through Don just to follow paperwork, but just, I want y'all to know, 'cause I'm sure that will be a fun phone call, so. Next thing I've got, just real quick, I want to touch on three legislative things that are going on right now that I've been involved in, just so y'all know, so that if y'all hear something out of ACCA or out of Montgomery, you'll know kind of what we've been working on. The logging bill is going on right now, Senator Williams out of Mobile, Baldwin County. The annual attempt to try to up the weights on logging trucks. And so the Cliff Notes version of that bill is they're saying they do not want to increase the gross amount of the weight. They want to leave the total amount the same, but they want to increase how much weight you can put on each axle. And so the best analogy I've got for you is this. If I was going to go step on Roger's foot, I don't like it, you, Roger, just out of anybody.
I understand.
If I was
It's not
gonna-
important, yeah.
If I was going to step on Roger's foot and I was wearing tennis shoes, would be one thing. But if there was high heels with all that on one little point, the same weight, it would hurt a lot worse.
You need to work on those analogies.
I know, I didn't say I was wearing it, I'm just saying. So, so there's a difference between a bigger foot, the weight matters, you understand, on the point load, and that's the theory on the logging bill. So we are adamantly against it. We're always against any more weight on our roads. We don't care if it's a
How
log
is
truck,
that
chicken
gonna
truck.
help them? If the total weight is still a fixed weight,
They're just pecking away. They're just trying to break the way. And it's, like I said, nothing against the forestry industry. I'd be doing the same thing if it was a chicken truck or a dump truck or a whatever. It's about weight. We're trying to
And
protect our
eventually it will
group.
be all of those.
It will be. That's
Yeah.
correct.
yeah.
So we're just trying to, kind of keep our stance that we've always had. Tomorrow and Wednesday is the transportation conference in Birmingham. It's Allied's big conference. I'll be down there for that. Wednesday afternoon at 2:30, the Agriculture Committee meets, and there's a public hearing on this bill, and myself and Justin Hardy out of Lee County are going to speak on behalf of engineers and just kind of advocate for our side of it and why we think it's a bad idea. So, because it doesn't sound like a bad thing if you just say, well, we're not increasing the weight, we're just increasing it per axle. And I'll come up with something different than high heels, but
You might wanna say, if my wife wore high heels and stepped on my foot.
that's better. I should call you for analogies. Okay. So that's the logging bill. Of course, it's pretty obvious why we don't like it. The next one, just so you know, we've actually had a lot of in-depth stuff on this today. Utilities with 811, call before you dig. They're trying to update some of that stuff, and it's okay to update that stuff, but we have to be really careful. Because right now, we kind of have, we get some exemption in what we call, the bill now says routine maintenance. So us grading roads, us digging ditches, us bush hogging roads, us replacing pipes, that's routine maintenance for us. And we're kind of covered. Now, we try, if we think there's a utility there and we're gonna hit it, we call and we do the thing. But Chelsea, remember, there's about a 3-day lead time on that as well. So sometimes we don't have that luxury. Sometimes we don't have 3 days. The pipe stopped up or whatever it is, and we have to go in and replace it. If we can, we use it. We've been having some back and forth with them because they're wanting to change some stuff that we're just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we're still protected. So just know if you hear some utility legislation, we're on the very front end of that. They actually had a bill that they created in the summer we didn't find out about it until just a couple weeks ago, and then we got brought in, and now we're getting to take their finished product and kind of clean it up. So that one's working pretty good. The last one is same old, ATVs on county roads, Mr. Garner's bill. We still have the same stance on that. Not a fan. There is some conversation about they may do some allowances to maybe to make it where you could cross a road legally. You know, where you could make a 90-degree crossing under certain circumstances. But in general, the county engineer is against four-wheelers on county roads. So,
Mr. Garner's exempt because of ag.
he sure is. He sure is.
Because of
Yeah. So, anyways, like I said, I'll be gone next 2 days. I'll be available if you need me, but I'll be down south. Other than that, we do have the on the agenda tonight the plaque for Mr. Dowdy. He won't be here, but all that's good, and so we'll do that, and we'll take it to him at times. Thank you.
All right, Tom.
Just a couple of names won't be long. If y'all get any calls, we've been experimenting a little bit. We had a lot of calls from citizens that are upset about our trucks slowing down traffic in school zones or highways, whatever. So I've got about 4 or 5 of the drivers who've been coming in at 5:30 and leaving out, trying to beat that traffic because it's so bad. And so far, it's worked out really well. I've actually had some citizens call and thank us, especially on County Road 30 out there where it's so heavy out in St. Florina out that way. So it's going real well right now. They come in about 5 and they're leaving out about 5:30, and then they getting in and going out. So that's working. If you hear somebody, if you hear of us that we're out there early, that's the reason. So we're trying to beat that traffic. So and we're in the school zone every day somewhere. So, and that's really helped us, especially Chisholm Road, Waterloo Road, out to Green Hill, Brooks. Brooks is not as bad as, because it's on the highway, but Brooks Elementary. So a lot of that's helped. So only other thing, we had a little incident this morning about 3:30, one of our dumpster drivers backed into a truck. I've already turned all the paperwork in. Nobody was hurt, just the damage to the other truck, not ours. So that's been turned in. And really, that's all I've got. If y'all got anything for me.
Okay.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Hey, Brad.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Several things just to bring you up to date on this evening. First, and I told some of the commissioners earlier, there are a number of grants that Anita had reached out to our office about that are unpaid. And there were grants and reimbursements. So just so you're aware, we still have not received our federal portion from the 2023 and the 2024 EMPG grant. That's the yearly grant that Alabama EMA grants to the county for emergency preparedness. The 2023 storm shelter grant has not been paid by the state. And then we have 4 FEMA grants that go back to the tornadoes a couple of years ago. Of that, about $200,000 of it is due to Tom and his department in solid waste. $6,300 is due back to Brooks High School for damage out there, and about $4,100 in miscellaneous expenses from that recovery effort. We've reached back out to the state and reached back out to FEMA. We hope that with the new administration that some things will change and we'll start to see some of that federal money especially roll in. I think in total we're somewhere in the $500,000 range, plus or minus, that's due from all of that. So as your constituents ask about that, we're moving forward with it. We're trying to get reimbursement for it, but that's where those all stand. I want to talk briefly about EMS. I had sent all of you an email. I am happy to report that Lifeguard is now a Blue Cross Blue Shield in-network provider. That is significant for our county. This will be the first ambulance service in about 15 years now that has been Blue Cross Blue Shield in-network provider. So it should mean a significant reduction in rates for our citizens. Yes, sir.
Brad, does that mean there's a possibility to go back to exclusive service?
Maybe, maybe not. So a couple of things where the contract is concerned that, and you kind of lead into what I needed to talk about anyway. First off, there was a rumor going around last week that Lifeguard was planning on putting a new ambulance in Lexington. That is not true. That has not been discussed. That has not been funded by this body or by the city council. If you recall, any additions to the system have to be approved first by my office and then by this body and the city council. So if you hear that rumor out in the community, that's not true. All I can really surmise from that is someone took the Fitch and Associates information and picked and chose what information they wanted to share. If you recall, one of the points that was brought up by Fitch was if we're looking at reducing the total call volume or total pressure on the system, then there were 2 more units that were needed, so 48 hours worth of coverage that were needed. And it was suggested in that if we were to accept that proposal, then we would add those 2 units, one to the Zip City Central area, somewhere in that general area, and one to the Lexington, Grassy, that general area to cover the north end of the county. But at this point, there have been no decisions made by this body. So kind of with that as a little bit of a backdrop, remember we're approaching in March the 1-year anniversary of the 3-year contract that this body entered into with Lifeguard. They have notified us that they are going to exercise their 3% price increase, which if you'll recall in that agreement, they're allowed up to 3% based on consumer price index. The CPI last year was 2.96%, so 3% is applicable to that. So that 3% comes out to about $17,000 that will be split 50-50 equally between the commission and the city, and that's all within the contract. We have talked, there are a couple of options that we're exploring with them, because right now we're running into kind of a multi-layered, I don't really want to call it a problem. It's one, the nature of the time of year when you have a lot of sickness throughout the community and a lot of transports that are happening. And what that has created is a situation where both Nancy's ER and Keller's ER in Colbert County are at capacity. And so our ambulances, or what they refer to as holding the wall. When an ambulance takes a patient into an emergency facility, they cannot release that patient until someone accepts that patient. So if all of us were taken into the emergency room and I'm the paramedic, I can't release you as a patient until someone of equal or higher professional status is there to receive you. And so what is happening at our emergency facilities is with them being at capacity, not having beds to put someone in, and not having the appropriate medical staff there to accept those patients, our average emergency run right now is about 1 hour and 47 minutes from the time that they take possession of that patient until they leave the emergency department. 2 ways to fix that. Either we get people out of the emergency department quicker, which would mean that the hospital is going to have to expend some money to hire additional transportation to get those folks out, or we look at the total call volume that we have in-house and ways to triage those patients more appropriately to get them to the care that they need. There's a program that has started nationally. It's called Nurse Navigation. It's not exclusive to Lifeguard. It's something that's being used nationwide. And so when a caller calls into 911 and they have a medical emergency, we do what's called EMD, Emergency Medical Dispatching. That EMD process means that we ask that caller a series of questions to try to determine what their illness is or sickness is so that we can give appropriate pre-arrival information to that caller, as well as prepare that ambulance for what they're about to get themselves into. So I'll give you an example. This would have been Friday. Sitting in dispatch, gentleman calls in, says, I'm feeling dizzy. Continue to ask questions. Caller says, well, my doctor told me I had vertigo last week. I've never felt dizzy like this. I don't know if I need to go to the hospital or not, but I'm not real sure what's going on. I need to talk to somebody about it. Currently under our system, the only option that patient has is to go to the ER by an ambulance. Okay, and I've told you that an average ambulance call lasts 1 hour and 47 minutes. By implementing Nurse Navigation, that person would have qualified to be transferred to a licensed nurse in Alabama through the system, for that licensed nurse to ask them an additional series of questions. The nurse navigation process usually takes about 6 to 8 minutes. And then based on that conversation, that nurse then has several options. They can transfer them back to 911 and say, yep, this person needs to go to the hospital now. Or they can say, no, this person probably needs to go to urgent care, and they can arrange for transportation at no cost to our citizens for that person to get from their home to that urgent care facility, then back from that urgent care facility to their home. All right? So basically an Uber ride to get there. Or if they need to go to the hospital, but it's not something that's really going to be life-threatening right now, they can also Uber them to the hospital, which again takes pressure off of our ambulance system. Or if they don't have a primary care physician, then they can set them up with a telehealth care visit. If they don't have insurance, they can help walk them through that process. If they just need that reassurance from a nurse, from someone who is licensed and professional, then they can give them that information over the phone. Point being is, in markets where this system has been implemented, it's shown that about 50% of the callers that call into 911 can go through that nurse navigation process, and of that 50%, less than 20% get referred back to 911 for a transfer. What I like about it is it's got that fail-safe in there to where my 911 dispatchers aren't having to make those decisions and fear the bad end of the result, because now you've got a nurse involved who can also give them that. I think in doing that, then we can one, lessen the number of transports that we're having to go that are having to go to the emergency department, but also get the appropriate level of care to our community when they need it. And so when you talk about the exclusivity of the contract, can we go back to exclusive? Absolutely. We're still in the same boat that we were in, because we're boxed off from our east, from our south, and by state lines to our north and to our west. There's not a market share in here for another company to come in. So either, in my opinion, respectfully, we got one of three options. We either tweak the contract to where it does what it's supposed to do, and we're able to get the appropriate level of care consistently for a reasonable amount of money. Two, we buy the assets, we own the ambulances, and we lease out the labor, and at that point you're in a professional services contract, and so you're not as bound by state law on limits for contracting as you are with the contract the way it sits today. Or we go to a straight fire-based system, which is a whole nother conversation. I would suggest respectfully to the commission at this point, allow me to continue researching the nurse navigation. I think that there is a way to increase the number of unit hours that we have on the street without a significant increase to what you're paying now. I think it's going to be a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be near the $1 million per ambulance cost that we've all talked about. And we can get the system in line to where we're getting the appropriate care when we need it. Oh. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
What did the rates, how did this change rates once they went in network?
Oh,
Blue Cross is reimbursing.
Yeah, Blue Cross is reimbursing them plus the Medicare rate change. So, and I don't have exact numbers because every run is different, but over the last 5 or 6 months, I've gotten calls from folks who were paying $1,700, $1,800 to go from their house to the ER. That should be cut down to less than $200.
Okay.
So
That's significant.
that's significant. That's a big deal. Lifeguard has also been approved as of Friday for their critical care license in the state of Alabama. So they're going to be able to put critical care nurses the critical care nurses on the trucks, which especially, and that makes a bigger deal for the eastern and the western ends of the county, where your average response time is 25 to 30 minutes. Your in-city stuff, it's not really going to have that big of an effect on. And really, Rogersville's kind of in a unique situation, because part of the proposal that I'll bring back to you is not going to include adding ambulances to Rogersville, because with Rogersville's ALS certification, they can provide such a higher level of care through their fire department than any other fire department in this county can, that my concern is not how quickly we get them to the hospital, it's how quickly we get that appropriate level of care to them. And so if we can take what they're doing with the critical care, look at the potential of some Sprinter trucks or fast trucks to get to those rural areas quicker with that higher level of care, then I think that we can accomplish what everybody needs. Does that make sense, Commissioner?
It does,
Okay.
it does, very good.
The only other two things that I needed to bring before the commission tonight, one, and I know there's been some conversations about the Coliseum. If you'll remember, years and years ago, Florence High School was designated as the mass care location for the American Red Cross. That was done before Florence High School was Florence High School. It was back in the days that it was Bradshaw High School before any of the renovations were done. And at that point in time, it was set up very appropriately as a mass care facility. That's not the case anymore. So we've approached the Red Cross and are in conversations of changing that mass care site to be the Coliseum. It's set up for that. I've talked with Mr. Jordan with City Park and Rec. He's comfortable with going down that road. And that would simply be in the event that we have a significant disaster that happens. We have a large number of people, 200 plus, that we've got to house very quickly, that facility would be utilized for that. So I just want to make you aware of that. The last, and Mr. Hill brought up some legislation, so I'll bring up two pieces of legislation to be on your radar. It's House Bill 25 and Senate Bill 68. They are companion bills in both of the houses, and it changes some of the language and takes some of the responsibility off of my shoulders and puts it back on your shoulders. So currently, the way that the emergency management laws are written in the state of Alabama, the director of emergency management that is appropriately hired and employed by the political subdivision of the state can, on behalf of the political subdivision, enter into memorandums of understanding and mutual aid agreements with other counties or other entities that do not expend any county, city, or state funds without having to go before the commission. So in other words, if myself and Jody Hitt over in Colbert County wanted to make an arrangement whereby if he has a water incident, then resources or assets from Lauderdale County would be utilized there, then I can enter into those agreements as the director. Problem is that conflicts with state law in sections 3199 and 31911 that on the liability side say that only the government or the political subdivision can enter into those. So they're changing that and basically saying that any memorandum of understanding, regardless of whether or not money is involved or not, will have to come before this commission to be approved. I say that because on the surface, it sounds like a good thing. You're the government, you're the one that can enter into contracts. It's been constitutionally solidified by the state Supreme Court that that's the way that it is. A memorandum of understanding is codified as a contractor agreement, therefore it should come before the county commission. I have no problem with that at all. What it will do though, moving forward, is there's going to be a lot more minutia that's going to have to come before the commission in order to get approved. And on the flip side, whenever we have a disaster that happens and we're having to go by the seat of our pants almost to get through those early stages of whatever that disaster is, this commission will have to make a lot of decisions when it comes to that normally I would just make as the director. So what we're researching and trying to figure out is there will have to be at least one resolution that in times of non-disaster, you'll have to make the decision whether or not you want to give me the authority on behalf of the commission to enter into those. But likewise, there's also going to have to be a conversation, kind of like what happened during COVID, of what constitutes a meeting and how we can work through those in the event that we have a tornado that strikes and I need to get resources flowing very quickly, how we manage that. So I just want those two to be on your radar. They are ACCA supported bills. The House version, HB 25, has passed the House and has been adopted. SB 68 is going before Ag next week, and I'm not real sure why they're putting it before Ag, but they're putting it before Ag next week, and we'll see how it comes out of committee. And that's all I have.
On that, nurse navigation, would 911 be making that call, or it goes lifeguard, let them make that call?
No, sir. So it would all start with us, and first and foremost, if we are successful in getting this program implemented, if someone calls and says, I'm adamant, I want to go by ambulance, I don't want to talk to your nurse, hey, that's totally fine. We're going to send the ambulance just like we would anything else. In EMD, there is a classification system based on what the caller tells us as to whether or not this is an advanced life support situation, a significant trauma, or if this is just a basic. And understand, and we've had this conversation for a number of years on the commission, the difference between a BLS truck and an ALS truck, and the commission made the decision, we don't want BLS truck because that's just a taxi service. We want ALS trucks because they can do something, right? So what this would do is on our end of it at 911, if one of those calls classifies as a BLS situation, then we would offer the nurse navigation to that caller. If it was an ALS situation, they wouldn't have the choice, we would send the ambulance.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I got a couple of questions for Brad. So Brad, are you in favor of SB 68?
As a matter of law, yes. As a matter of practicality, it's going to complicate processes during emergency. In order for things to operate in the county's best interest and for the liability to be covered by both the commission and by emergency management, then the changes in the language need to happen.
Second question, where does lifeguard, where's their center of operation at?
Right now they have two stations, one on State Street, which is behind the Walmart Neighborhood Market, and one in Industrial Park. They're in the process of entering into a long-term lease with a facility that's behind Red Lobster, for lack of a better location. And at that point, they will consolidate at that location. If we, depending on what, Josh Spencer and I met last week, and I asked him for some numbers on fast trucks. If those numbers come in where I think they're gonna come in and I feel comfortable presenting them to the commission, what I told Josh at that time is if we go that route with these fast trucks, and they'll be non-transport, but they will have a medic or higher on them, that we would station, that part of the agreement, because it would be a modification to the contract, which we would get our attorney and the city's attorney involved to ensure that it doesn't end up being a substantial enough change that would require a rebid or anything along those lines. But that I would put in that agreement that one of them would have to stay in the central area and one of them would have to stay in the Killen area. He's already, by contract, we already have one fast truck that's here. The idea would be to put one in the west end of the county, one in the center of the county, and one in the east end of the county. But again, no disrespect to my family and friends in Rogersville. Rogersville's a different story because that fast truck really wouldn't have as much impact there because they already have ALS certified firefighters that respond.
I think that would give the greatest impact if it were in Rogers.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anything else, Mr. Chairman?
I guess that's all.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, good.
To refresh your recollection on the reverb,
They have a packet.
I know, but there were three separate areas of incentive. We went through the process, and through our conversations, they backed off 772. So they're coming at you with just a standard ad valorem 40-9B request, and then this brand new Sweet Home Alabama Act requires really the states making the decision on an extra pack of incentives. But for the state to consider them and do their due diligence, they require the governing bodies here in Florence and the county to pass a supporting resolution. That just allows the construction company to go to the state tourism and work through their processes. So I asked for resolutions. They sent them last week. I reviewed them, found one or two little areas that I thought needed to be changed so that we don't have conflicting information. One is significant yet simple. In one approach, they gave me one figure for jobs during construction and then permanent jobs once operation. And then in the IDB agreement and the other resolution was different figures. I said, well, I know what's happening. They keep revising upward. This construction plan now, it's up to $76.5 million. So I said, I need to know, and it needs to be in the paperwork consistently, consistent, what are we talking about? So we're talking 573 on the construction jobs during the construction period, and an estimated 237 in annual jobs once operation begins. A few other anomalies were fixed, and I've sent the revised packet to Brenda, but what you've got, without paying attention to those numbers, is basically the resolutions. Now, I want y'all to look at them, and I want you to call me. I'm available any day to talk to you, even the weekend, because Mr. Sack and his legal representatives will be here at the next work session to answer any final questions y'all have, and then they're gonna ask for a vote on those two resolutions. So we'll do our due diligence between now and then reserve your nuanced questions for the guy and the man and the lawyer that are, you know, projected to build the place. And that's how the process will work. And although also I needed an updated version of what their IDB agreement is independently, the LLC and IDB, because it is ratified, incorporated in our resolutions by necessity and by law. So we needed that in our records. We now have that in our records, and I made a formal request that if any changes were made, we be given the latest update of that agreement. So now we've dotted almost all I's, crossed almost all T's, with the final questions to be levied at Mr. Sack and Mr. Schicker at our next meeting, and then it's time to go yea or nay. The other thing that I have is an update on the tax litigation. Finally got that. That's an order for scheduling on Valentine's morning via Zoom, at which point I expect Judge Simpson, who is a very old school judge, and I like it because he makes decisions. He will lay forth, after hearing from the attorneys, of what he thinks the issues are, what they think the issues are, and how best to get from where we are to some sort of hearing on those issues, be it trial, be it by summary judgment motion, which is what I think is going to happen. Because like I told you before, the facts are the facts. There's not going to be a lot of factual argument about that. It's really an argument of law. And so I think it's going to end up being done through the summary judgment and argument process at that level. But the whole point is, after the scheduling meeting, I fully expect to have a roadmap that the judge will lay out about how this litigation will get from where we are to eventual resolution. And I'll let you know. Matter of fact, I'll probably email all of you, give you an update after this scheduling conference on Friday. The other is the vacation request that Eric discussed. If you go up the road, and I don't remember the name of the road or the number, but it's the one that goes from the Petersville community, goes to the Underwood ball fields. You know that? That's an east and west road. There's a Church of Christ on the left, church.
Hendricks Road.
Right.
Hendricks.
And the lot next to it is being given to their preacher for him to build a house. Well, there's an unused, very small utility easement across those two or three lots. I at first had questions, because on paper, I'm like, no, wait a minute, you can't take lots in a subdivision and vacate here, and that prevents these lots up here from getting eventual electricity if needed. That throws up a big, sign, but this is different. All the other lots around this one undeveloped lot next to the parking lot of the church have already been developed. They already have power, because the power on the south side of that road came south to north. In other words, this easement is unusable by any of those neighbors. Everything to the north of that road already has power coming, up Cloverdale and through that subdivision. So this easement is basically useless. Eric, of course, gets saved from the road department, because that's where our easement, comes through, is the road department, and this is a utility easement. Eric and I physically visited the property, and I've had multiple conversations with the lawyer. I have no legal problem with it. So the process is, tonight you'll pass a simple resolution to allow the process to go forward. They'll be working on a notice to go in the paper. The notice will say, this is what the commission is considering, and this will be the date of the public hearing. At the end of the agenda on that night, we'll have a public hearing where if anybody wants to speak on it, they can, or in the interim period, if they just want to give written objection or comment to Brenda, she'll let you know what she's received. If there's no problems with the vacation, there are no comments, there are no questions in the commission, you can go forward and proceed with a vote on the actual vacation that night. If there's any question at all that you commissioners want to have time to look at it further and think about it, then we rotate the actual vote to the next meeting after that. Tonight begins the process, that's all it is. Any questions?
I'd like to ask Chris on our two resolutions that dealing with reverb. One of those is basically, are we going to go ahead and grant 10 years to 10 to 20 years? Because the other we know can be done
That's right.
automatically. And the other resolution will be is basically us giving our blessing on.
You're telling the state you don't have any problem with that construction company negotiating with the state the additional packages under the Sweet Home Alabama Act.
Good.
It's boiled down to those two things after much work and discussion. Anyway, look at them and call me. We'll do whatever due diligence we need to for y'all to be prepared to discuss with the people themselves. And I figured that would be best that way because we just got the revised ones this morning. I just sent the revised ones to Brenda.
And the resolutions will be on that meeting's agenda that evening.
Unless you remove it. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Brenda?
I don't have a whole lot. You know, every year we have that mandatory required screening, health screening for all the employees, so we get the lower interest, the lower rate. That's a couple of months off, but I always run a resolution, let people know where they can go if they want to go somewhere. There's several pharmacies in town you can go have it done. So if you have our insurance, you have to have that screening done. That'll be coming out in just a resolution, then we'll send it to all the employees so they'll know. I know a lot of Eric's guys went to a couple of places and they didn't come up here, you know, or we did go out there, the girls go to solid waste and whatever. And then the COVID worker that we hired, for the social worker that we hired when we did our budget, she didn't want insurance, we didn't put it in there in her budget. Well, now she's decided she wants insurance, so it's enough that we're gonna have to go back and have to make a budget amendment for that, for her on the, I mean, she's still got there's plenty of money in the COVID account, but that's gonna be that's what that is. And then I've gotta make a couple of budget amendments to the county commission, you know, hiring the new administrator, and I'm still here and stuff like that, a couple of little things I need to throw around. And nothing major. And then the Dennis Quaid, I guess, is a no. The commissioners weren't really impressed with that, so what I'm just gonna tell those people.
I called Kevin. Kevin said it was a scam. Jackson said they call him all the time.
So I'll be on the
Whatever y'all want to do.
I'll get on the conference call with them and tell them we're not interested. And actually, the tourism board was interested, but I guess so.
Well, if I put up to 25,000, we're all in, and we won't. We're in.
We can't be part of the scam, so
Well, it wouldn't be us, it'd be the tourism department.
anyway, that's really all I got. Oh, you know, we have 4 maintenance guys. One of the maintenance guys' trucks got on its last leg. It's one that we took from the sheriff's department when we took Tracy in, and we've got that extra truck. I've got that extra truck that was animal control. I was going to give that to Ricky and just move all the trucks down one and sell that one on the end, so we don't have to buy a new truck or anything. It's you know, like I said, we took the last truck that we bought, that we didn't buy any trucks. You know, we just usually hand those trucks down to the maintenance guys. And so if y'all are good with that, I was gonna do that. And we'll run that through the next meeting. It's just changing it from one department to the next. It's no cost or anything involved. Are y'all good with that?
Sounds good.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Brenda, you know, one thing, Brenda, I'd like, if we could put together a list of all county-owned real estate.
We have that.
I'd like a copy of
Okay,
that.
that's a good copy.
And locations of where that real estate is.
Yeah, we have all that for our insurance.
Perfect.
Brenda, also, the list that you gave a couple of us of what's rented and what's not, I meant to bring a copy. I was going to give it to Mr. Pettis. Can you give him a copy of that?
Sure.
Thank you.
I
I meant
put
to
one,
bring.
I think I put one in his box, but I'll
Okay.
let you know when I've got
Okay.
one. I've got one on my desk.
Thank you.
We've got about 5 or 6 offices that aren't rented. And I thought, if y'all wanna talk about the CD renting the building and all that, I've got several people in it that are interested in some of the buildings. I've told them we weren't renting any right at the time because I thought the city might be gonna use them. But the city's not going anywhere, so I don't know if y'all want me to rent them to somebody else. We need to decide on what our rate's gonna be.
On the other hand, guys, I don't think we made a decision on Eric's, explain that to us, Eric, on this grade change.
Oh, that was on this.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we'd like to create a mechanic 1 and a mechanic 2
Oh, yeah.
position, not taking anybody to a higher grade, just creating a lower grade position so we can take people that don't have a CDL. Yeah, and actually today we had a mechanic put in a 2-week notice. This is gonna be really soon for us. So it would just be creating another position that would allow us to hire non-CDL mechanics to get them in. We hire them, then we can train them in-house to get them up to that. But it would just kind of open up the hiring for us. We get a lot of applicants for mechanics that just don't qualify.
How would you know when to move them up?
When they get
Next
the
step,
CDL.
when they get the CDL, that's gonna be so you'll do the resolution, you'll do your job description that way?
Yeah, so everybody's gonna be the same job description, one with CDL, one without. And we're already at a grade 7 for mechanic, so that would be mechanic 2, and then mechanic 1 would be a grade 6.
Would the lower grade be a lower pay than what we're hiring in now?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so we used, create a grade with that lower pay than just hiring a mechanic
Yes.
to get him to a mechanic.
Yes.
No, okay.
So, because right now, we're missing on a lot of guys that'd be good mechanics, they just don't have that CDL, which we don't really
CDL,
need.
okay.
Yeah. So, I think it would probably,
I would, for that lower job, is there still, to make it sort of be a grade 6, is there still something that makes it a 6? Like, do they have any kind of certification? Because I'm assuming the 7 is heavily precedented by the CDL.
no. I mean,
So-
from a mechanic, no. And I think I know where you're going on the certifications. We've looked into that for mechanics.
No, so this will help. I don't want us to get into a problem with another grade doesn't have any, that's not a 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? That may go, hey, how are they a 6?
Or some kind of qualification.
Yeah.
We've looked really hard at qualifications for mechanics. 20 years ago, I think that was probably pretty relevant. Now, it's all about the computer software, and we just,
Yeah.
we don't even have half of them.
So the
it's-
foundation, I get it. You almost couldn't just take the CDL all up together, could you, from the 7?
You make good.
So I'm wondering, is there gonna be ramifications down the line for other positions that may come and point back to that one?
Yeah.
Other departments.
Yeah, other departments may come back and go, look at this.
That's the reason I like leaving mechanics 2 at 7 and with a CDL, because the CDL is not a bad thing. It's just not, it's not really required. And in the private sector, those guys don't have, they just don't have a CDL. So you're kind of trying to find a pretty specialized person. And just so you know, everybody's a mechanic if you ask them, right?
That's right.
You know, I think Garner says he can work on a tractor. Well, we know, right?
If he's looking
So-
for a job, he would share with you that he was a good mechanic.
We get that a lot. In an interview process, you get that a lot. Oh yeah, been on a tractor my whole life, or done whatever.
What's another example, this may be unfair, in another department of a 6?
A 6 for us would be an operator. No, excuse me. Yeah, it would be an operator 1. Be an operator 1, yeah.
Does it make sense where we just don't want to get in a situation with another department, with another department head that points that and goes, hey, in other words, there becomes a windfall.
Yeah, so kind of the trend that I'm trying to do is, we did this last year, I guess. We created, we have truck driver grade 5, operator grade 6, which is a natural progression. We were having trouble with some guys that just didn't have CDLs. We really wanted to hire full time. So we created a grade 4 position called a laborer that just doesn't have CDL. And so it just kind of allows us to get these entry-level guys in, get them in the system, and then let them work to the CDL.
Yeah.
We like really training them better than we like selling them anyways. We feel
Yeah.
like we do a better job.
So exactly what you're wanting, I perfectly understand, right? So I'm trying to differentiate the 4 and 6. Like how do you tell the 4, you're not the 6 and the 6, you're 4?
A 6 has a specialized, the 6 mechanic has a specialized skill set of being able to work on things. A 4 mechanic, a 4 laborer that comes in for us, has got a good strong back, a good work ethic.
Because a 6 in a probate is a manager, road office manager,
That's our office manager. Yes, sir.
herbicide specialist for you requires a state license.
It does.
That would be my only thing, is do we wind up in a situation, maybe something that we have Ms. Bryant, Ms. Slatton look at too with HR to make sure we don't wind up with some sort of problem going forward.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I understand what you're wanting to do, and I agree with you.
Yeah, and I'm good with whatever, you know, we just,
So if I'm understanding this correct, when you hire somebody into the 6, are they somebody that's been a 4? You wouldn't hire somebody off the street just to if they came in and said, hey, I'm a good mechanic.
we will do that, and they would go in as a 7. Today, they would go in as a 7, but they would have to have a CDL. But what I would like to do is bring them in as a 6 without a CDL.
What if you said, we're gonna hire you and give you a year or 18 months or whatever to get that?
That's what I want to do.
Right, but
We
no
can't do that.
6. Can't do it?
They gotta have CDL.
Right, I'm saying you give them that time period to go get that.
We
Yeah,
often
that's-
pay for their CDLs.
Yeah.
We pay for, if they wanna go, we pay for that fee for them to get their CDLs.
And we
County's
can
done that
train
for a
them.
couple of years.
Yeah, and that may eliminate, does that possibly eliminate the need for a 6? You say, we can hire you as a 7, you've got this time period to go get that.
Good.
That's what we've been doing. That's what they do in other departments. I thought y'all already knew that we paid for CDLs.
I would be fine doing that, if you want to do that. That would be,
That might be a better way, right?
just change the job description and say, you know, you have to have CDL in a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Whatever that time period is legally.
That would be great.
I don't know. if-
Tom, don't yours say that? What do yours say on yours for CDLs?
I just, we become CDL.
We pay for them to
They
get
go-
CDLs. And they
they
move
get
up
the
a step.
permit.
They move up a step.
They pay for their own permit, take the test.
Yeah.
Then we get them in
They
this
don't see a reason to do it.
program. I provide a truck,
How do they need it?
pay them the time to go over there and take it, allow them out, and then they get to test.
But that would be one problem you'd have, because you would, most people wouldn't be the same way. They have to have their CDLs. They can't work for them.
Yeah, it's
They'll be
like
at the same level as the
Yeah.
six, the
a
same.
truck driver, it's not relevant.
Yeah, so I guess that's what Brad was, now we're trying, he's asking the same thing. Why does the mechanic need it for you, the CDL?
To be honest, 90% of the time they don't. But there's 10% of the time where, you know, a dump truck's messed up.
Got to move it after it's to another place to get
Move it,
repaired or something.
You know, you
So
just
you
go out
want
and
to
get
have
it
it
and
or not?
drive it. I need some with it. I do. So, and look, when the guys get in there, if we can get them in without it and get into it in a year, I think that's great. Because I think it's good for them to have.
Is that feasible that we give them the year to go get it? Is
We'd
that-
have to do that with the other departments. That Tom has people that, you know, we tell them they can get it, and then they can move up a grade.
Do they have a year?
I don't think we put, I don't know if we put a time limit.
But they're
on it.
truck drivers, so these guys wouldn't be, it wouldn't be their sole job. You know, I couldn't do this with my truck drivers.
You got
They gotta
mechanics
have-
and stuff. We'd have to go back and just look through all of
Okay,
them before.
let's
we
do
go.
that. Let's
If
just
we
take
could
a
do
look.
that, that'd be better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I understand and I agree with what you want to do though.
No, I'd be all for doing that, but
Just
just,
because I can
just
see
give
where
me a
somebody be a
year.
great mechanic, but not necessarily have that or.
Yeah. Sometimes the hard part with the CDL, and this really is relevant to mechanics, it's really, not get psychological on you here, but it's kind of a brain thing, right? So a lot of mechanics are left brain, really, they think
Sure.
outside the box. And there's a test, I know we had an employee one time, and I'm still very impressed by this guy and respect him for this. His reading comprehension wasn't just great. And so his wife read the book to him and recorded it. And he walked around all day long with that in his ear, and he listened to it, and he memorized it, took the test, and passed. But not everybody can do that. And mechanics are just a unique, their brain works different than.
Good mechanic can't pass the test.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's,
See,
that's
I did
it.
that with the tire tech. I had a guy that was as good as a tire tech that I didn't find, but he didn't have CDL, and I gave him X amount of time to get that, because that was part of the job description.
We had that with a herbicide tech. That test, he had trouble with it, but they read it to him and he passed it. But that is a hard test, and he would be like the equivalent, say, for a 6.
Yeah.
That's a hard test. That's a real test to get.
We'll look at it.
Okay.
We'll come up with something and see.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Miss Slatton and I have had an unusual week this week. It's been putting out fires all. She's got her feet wet really hard. First few days, we were doing a lot of stuff that we don't normally do all the time. So she hasn't met everybody, but we're getting around to everybody. We hadn't done it intentionally. I've been letting them know that we had some, like I said, people showing up wanting us to fill out job applications and grants and stuff that we weren't prepared. And, you know, fires here and there. That's what I said, half our job now is putting out fires. You know, that's a lot of it, so. But it's going, I think it's going fine. But you can say something if you like. We'll let you talk.
All right. All right, we'll make it 5 then.